Are you a fixer?
I am a recovering fixer, formally.
Formerly known
Uh,
as the fixer.
Welcome, friends, to the Reiki Women podcast, an exploration into the profound depths of the system of Reiki from a Japanese spiritual perspective and how that relates to our modern lives.
We are keeping it real to Reiki's origins, challenging the New Age stereotype that things like crystals, chakras, and angels are authentic aspects of the system. I'm Bronwyn Logan, and when I'm not writing best-selling books about the Japanese system of Reiki, 75,000 readers and counting, I'm here debunking outmoded Reiki myths and coaching individuals and groups through my website, Reiki with Bronwyn.
And I'm Michaela Daystar, lead teacher and weaver of Heartscapes Reiki, connecting the dots between Reiki and environmental and social justice, because our individual healing cannot be extracted from healing relationship with the collective and with the land.
And I'm Carrie Varela from the Reiki Healing Society, here to help you transform your Reiki practice into a thriving, prosperous business. Because while passion fuels your purpose, it's time to make it sustainable, authentic, and beautifully you. We're three women diving into the heart of Japanese Reiki. We're building a community that centers women's voices and inspires well-being. We're not just for women, we're for everybody. Come join the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reiki Women podcast. Today we have a really interesting, juicy, kind of spicy topic around breaking free from being the fixer. And, fixing things is kind of like a fun thing to do, right? It feels really satisfying to fix a leaky pipe or, fix up a broken shelf. But when we're trying to do that for other people and other situations, sometimes it can lead us into a whole lot of challenges and problems. So this is a really rich and nuanced topic, I am sure, and I can't wait to get into it. I'd love to pass it over to you, Miss Bronwyn. What do you think about how do you break free from being the fixer?
Mm. Well, I reckon that most people who get into learning the system of Reiki start by thinking that they're going to be a fixer. I think that's because there's a lot of the promotions as well that go with it, like heal yourself, heal others. We use those words because it's hard to actually maybe find the right words to explain what we're going to do when we learn the system of Reiki. But being a fixer is actually not what we are. It could be the opposite of what we are, because what we're doing when we become a Reiki practitioner is that we are learning how to let go. So this idea of fixing something is not what we are. Initially, we can have a bit of that savior complex. We're going to save the world. I remember when I first started that I definitely had that feeling, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do Reiki on everything. The idea behind it, of course, is a really good one, in that you want to help heal the world. You want to heal yourself. You want to heal others. You want to make everything right. And I just think there are different paths to doing this, and especially within the system of Reiki. And if we look at the Japanese system of Reiki, and that's probably where we should be sitting a bit at the moment, because when I was saying that it's all about letting go, I really feel that that sits more into the Japanese understanding of the system of Reiki than possibly the more Western style. And I did learn the Western style when I first started. I was like, yeah, I'm going to Reiki my food. I'm going to Reiki that book. I'm going to Reiki my computer. I'm going to Reiki this. I'm going to Reiki everything. And I did. And I loved that sense of empowerment, but I think it was a bit fake. I think it was me trying to put myself onto things rather than me actually having a deeper understanding of the universe and my place in the universe, and that I'm a cog in that universe, and I need to allow myself to be that cog rather than trying to get spanners and screwdrivers and do things with that cog. So really allowing myself to relax and let that juice, the oil flow, let the cog go smoothly. I can go into this more and more, but I won't. So just really allowing that freedom to happen. And if we are trying to fix everybody, we're trying to take away from their own journey, if you like, their own healing experience. And by making it your healing experience, is not going to help them. It's not going to help them understand what's going on with them, why they're like that, and actually allowing them to fix for themselves by learning to let go, yeah, and being in the flow themselves to allow whatever they need to have at this particular moment in time. So being a fixer is really just a getting in the way sort of thing, I think. Yeah. There's probably lots more to that, but I'm going to pass it along. Michaela, are you a fixer?
I am a recovering fixer, formally, formally.
Formerly known as
Having,
the fixer.
yes, yes. Having completed Codependence Anonymous, there is a 12-step program for those of you who are fixers. Uh, Highly recommend. No, I was giggling when you were talking about I'm going to Reiki this and I'm going to Reiki the book and I'm going to Reiki this. I had this image of like Cinderella's godmother being like, Sankadanula, Mechikapula, bibbidi bobbidi boo. It's like this, and I giggled partly because it was a cute image of you as a Disney character, but also because I resonate with that feeling, right? And the kind of the like immature entry point into Reiki. And I don't mean immature as a denigration, but like just as a person new to something that they have not deep dived yet, that kind of surface level understanding that it is kind of a like magic trick of like this and this and this. And, thankfully as we've all discovered, it's so much deeper than that. And, for me, and I know I've told this story in various forms and different contexts, but this topic is so, clearly resonant for me because I did come to Reiki in part through a very a desire to really kind of feed that fixer part of myself. And that really maturing into Reiki has involved really healing and transforming that part, not fixing that part, right? But being in evolution with that part. And, I think confronting the part of me that anxiously and hyperfixatedly needed to fix the people close to me, in particular my ex-husband, because he was going through a lot of really hard things that was really making my life hard. And because what I know now is I didn't have enough agency, enough stability, enough sense of myself to separate myself from that and to say, well, he has his journey. I don't, I might need to make different choices for my journey. All I could see is that, well, if he's not okay, then I'm not okay. And because I don't know how to get myself okay independently, then I need to fix him so that I can be okay. Now, this wasn't a conscious thought process, but this is what in fact was happening subconsciously in the background. And I've explored that a lot through Soul Collage, the other practice that I use, which really allows us to kind of individuate those parts of ourselves that are running in our subconscious. But this, codependent part of myself was incredibly strong. And the truth is, I didn't know that I could be independently stable, okay, happy even, if the people close to me were not also those things. Like my happiness and my sense of well-being was totally dependent on the other people around me, mostly my husband and kids, but also my parents and friends. It kind of rippled outward. And so, for a lot of years, that caused a lot of tension because my incipient attempts at forcing a fix for this other person, which I was not capable of doing, because in case you all don't know, we cannot actually fix anybody else at all. At all. We can't heal them. We can't change them. We cannot fix them. What we can do is present wider opportunity, and we can be different ourselves as an invitation to other people to be different. And this is the piece that is so simple and yet so life-changing and took me so long to realize. And it was the system of Reiki that got me there. But first I had to do a year in Codependence Anonymous because I had to just get a grip on this absolute distracting impulse to make him do something different than he was doing. Right? Do this, take this class, find this therapist, do this thing. I know a person who would be a great mentor. I know this, I know that, blah, 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 blah. Nag, 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 nag. And I thought I was being very helpful. And he thought I was smothering him and burying him. And both of those things were both true and not true at the same time. Right? I was offering up things that could have been very helpful to him. And he did not want any part of any of them, which meant that his experience of what I was doing was that I was smothering him. And that made everything worse. So, the idea that I could tend to my own stability and well-being was new, and it transformed my life. And what I know now in reflection with working with the system of Reiki from its Japanese origins, that it really was developing the integration of the three diamonds within me. I did not have that language at the time, of course. It would be years before I had that language. But what I know happened was first and foremost a strengthening of my own foundation, my own sense of myself, my own sense that I can generate stability for myself, even if other people in my sphere are chaotic, and that I have a right to do that. In fact, I have an obligation to do that for myself. And nevertheless, after that marriage ended and I felt much better about things and much more capable and much more competent and like I'd been on a journey, which I had, I felt ready to turn that goodness out to the world. And I discovered Reiki and I said, this is amazing. I'm going to be a fixer. I'm going to be a healer. I'm going to be a Reiki practitioner. I'm going to be a Reiki healer would have been how I would have said it. But there was still that voice that was like, oh, this is the legitimate way in which you fix other people. This is the right way to do it instead of what you were doing before. And so I really did enter into my experience with Reiki in its Western form from an altruistic and more stable and self-aware and yet still fundamentally flawed desire to change other people. And this is one of those things where like language matters and language can trip us up. And I am, in addition to a recovering codependent, a recovering academic, which means I can get real hung up on words and what they mean. But I do think there is something important about making these distinctions, about, finding a way, even if it's awkward at first, to talk about what we do in ways that offer more freedom to ourselves and to other people. And so I've, been working with what is the language instead of I am a healer or, Reiki is a healing process for you. And, the way that I've learned to practice the system of Reiki from you, Bronwyn, and others gives us that kind of language because it offers us structures like letting things go, that, like being Reiki rather than doing Reiki on somebody else, that my role is to be in my own practice and hold space for other people to be in practice alongside me and with me, and to model and demonstrate through that practice something that their system already knows how to do. And, chief among the practices, working with the three diamonds as a map, as a integrated totality, as the expression of freedom from our internal fixer, freedom from like the part of ourself that's trying to fix ourselves too, right? That part of ourself that might look at our own life and say, wow, I don't like that. I don't like that. Got to fix this, got to fix that, as opposed to let me be with what's true and better integrate inside of myself. Even in that, the language gets awkward and messy, right? But I do think it's worthwhile to struggle a bit with how we talk about these things, because it's easy to throw around terms because they're the easy thing to say, or they're the terms that feel nice, in ways that reinforce ways of being that don't actually lead us to greater freedom. And I do think the notion of we as Reiki practitioners being healers of other people is one of those points of language that's so common and difficult to replace. It's difficult to find like other ways of describing what we do that aren't like long, but worthwhile wrestling with it, or even just acknowledging the tension for it. Because being a fixer does not create more stability for ourselves, and it does not create more stability for others. It doesn't create freedom for ourselves or for others. And yet that doesn't mean that we're powerless in the face of our own struggles or other people's struggles. But it's a very different mindset to approach it from the perspective of being different inside and then being in relationship with other people and observing the results of that, as opposed to saying, I'm going to go fix, I'm going to heal this, I'm going to change this about these other people. So that's what I got to start with. What about you, for you, Carrie?
Oh gosh, breaking free from being the fixer. There's so much in that. Well, first of all, I think I love the idea of freedom, right? Freedom from the subconscious paradigms, subconscious way of relating to ourselves and the world and to others. But I think you really named a lot of the dynamic, right, of codependency, and Michaela. And so, codependency, I think for all people who have a real caring and empathic nature, we should be very knowledgeable of the codependency dynamic, because it's very common, and it kind of tends to impact people who are more empathic and more caring and more um, you know have that fixer mentality, right? um so what really is striking to me is that this um understanding that the world around us is a mirror, the mirror to ourselves. And until we really get that and understand that, it is really easy to see everything around us. Like, our senses are all oriented outwards, right? We see, the world around us, we hear the world around us. We're taking in all of the sensory information from the world around us, but there isn't a sense of connecting inward, until we develop that sixth sense, or a more meditative, or introspective sense. And that's certainly what Reiki can support us to do. But we've probably all heard that thing where, when you're really mad or triggered by somebody, and you really you use that knowledge that this situation is a mirror, and then maybe actually the piece of it is that you do that behavior that annoys you so much the other person is doing too, right? And so that other people and other things and other situations around you can be a mirror to your own inner state and your own awareness. And I think that's a little complicated, and I think there's a place where that doesn't work anymore either, right? I think sometimes we can go too far, where you're in a terrible abusive relationship or something, and somebody's like, it must be something due to me, what am I doing wrong, and so we have to be mindful that there's a point where we certainly can't take any responsibility for other people's behaviors and actions, but we can reflect. Is this situation that's going on, is this trigger something that is a reflection of a conflict happening in me? So when we have that tendency to fix all the world around us, all of our consciousness, let's say, is oriented towards other people and their problems. And maybe it seems very quite simple from your perspective to solve somebody else's problem or fix that issue. But true healing takes that inner agency and self-awareness, where we have to actually take in something from the outside world and digest it and say, actually, I want to change, I want to do something differently, or I want to find a mentor or a coach or somebody who can you know, help me work through that. Certainly we can help other people work through things, right? We can hold space, we can point in the direction of when somebody wants to fix themselves, that, oh, look at all of these resources available to you, and here are some different ways to work on this. And we can do it by doing it for ourselves first and foremost, and then becoming a guide, becoming somebody who can be a wayfarer, right? Showing other people the way to how one can access that inner agency and find your own inner truth and fix yourself. Um, and some of this that's coming up for me too has been just really a lot of depth that I've learned about this kind of dynamic through Vedic astrology. So I've been studying Vedic astrology. And it's really interesting that the house of oneself and the house of your relationships, they're directly across from each other. And so there is this polarity, this non-duality in many senses, where like our sense of self is in one corner and our sense of other is in the other corner, and they're almost always at odds with one another. And that's of course from a different system, not from the system of Reiki. But it's so interesting that our sense of self and our sense of relationship with other are like two sides of a coin. They are really interrelated. And so how do we relate to that? How do we reconnect to ourself? And it's a very you can see it in some people's chart. There's a clear connection between um you know, kind of moving away from oneself, or like in a more self-destructive way, like trying to disconnect from oneself and trying to find that sense of connection with other people. There is that dynamic that we can find. And I think for me, that's been certainly something that I've been really working through. Um, and I think also just it's so, we talk about Reiki being like, the founder of Reiki had this profound realization: I am the universe is me. Um, and to really walk with respect for every person that we come into contact with, that they are their own universe, right? And they're their own microcosm of all the experiences they've had in this life, and all the things that have impacted them, shaped them, made them who they are. Like, we can only see, like, from the outside, we can only see a small glimmer, a small window into that other person, their, what's going on inside of them, their dynamic. And so it is such a fruitless journey to, try to fix somebody, but yet it is so subconscious, Michaela. Like, we are all so drawn to it. And as women as well, I think, um, I know for women in my family in particular, there's just, and everybody in my family, but we have this sense of like accomplishment from doing things for other people, and that's how we gain self-worth. Or And so when we're not feeling like we're able to help other people, it's like, what's going on? Like, it's a reorientation around your self-worth, when you can really separate from that dynamic. So I think fixing the fixer is to recognize and turn inside, and also learn how to fix your own shit. We've been leaving in the cuss words, but like, really learn how to fix your own shelf. Learn how to like dig yourself out of a way of being, a destructive behavior pattern, a challenge in your life. And that will be so empowering. But until we do that, we're kind of in that hole, like looking up, like, how am I going to get out of this, right? So there's a lot of compassion for wanting to fix a broken world, and for wanting to fix broken things and experiences. But it always comes back to ourselves. And so I love the way the Japanese orient around the system of Reiki. Really helps me remember that and always come back to that. I really feel like it's helped me heal that, my own dynamic of wanting to, throw myself to others to, prove my self-worth or whatever it is. that dynamic is really a painful dynamic. I am very glad to be really working on fixing that for myself, so I don't have to continue to do and engage with those patterns. So I bet that brings up a lot more. Maybe there's more to talk about here. I don't know. But should we pause and talk about our own fixing things? What are we trying to fix in our Reiki practice? No, just joking. What is in our kitchen? What are we cooking in our kitchen?
Well, I just completed a dish. I finished doing the recording for the Reiki source book, so I'm most pleased with myself. 13 and a half hours of recording, which was way too long. But I'm so pleased to have that done. So it'll be out probably in the next week or so, and I'll be letting everyone know when it is ready. But I was so pleased to finish that, and yeah, very happy for myself. And I look forward to bringing that out into the world.
Congratulations.
Awesome. That's such a big task completed, like big check mark off the list. That feels really good. Can't wait. I will say I'm gonna preview something, and I'm gonna risk saying that it's a thing when I'm not done with it yet, because I have been really dragging my feet on completing it. And sometimes I just need to like have external accountability to say, hey, I'm doing this thing. But also because I'm excited about it, which is a pre-recorded class on bringing Reiki into one's pregnancy and childbirth experience. This is kind of a niche of Reiki that's always been dear to me. I've always had, kind of a space carved out of my practice for working with individuals and families who are going through pregnancy journeys, and utilizing Reiki in a variety of ways to support those journeys. Certainly in terms of sessions, but more to my heart, teaching people practices from the system of Reiki that can really support them in terms of the ever-changing nature of the pregnant body, the very wild emotional landscape that can occur, not just for the birthing person, but also for their support network during that experience. And then, of course, connecting with the little one that is coming into being right there at the hara, using practices from the system of Reiki. So it's work that's dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to have kind of put it into a self-paced course that folks can walk through at their leisure. And that is about 2/3 of the way recorded and edited. So we're almost there, and I have now spoken it out loud publicly, which means I'm gonna finish it. What about you, Carrie?
Oh my gosh, I can totally feel your pain, because I've been in that place where I've just been like trying to get to the very finish line of a project. It is always a little challenging, always takes a little bit more time than you think it is. But
It's a
I've
real
also
love-hate relationship sometimes.
yes, it sure is. Yeah, I've also have something that I've cooked. It's called Financial Foundations, Developing 7 Income Streams for Healing Arts Professionals. It is a whole course on how you can braid your multiple passions and talents into your healing arts business, which can include Reiki. It can be Reiki as kind of your main course, if you will, different threads of how you can work with Reiki, whether it be Reiki sessions, teaching Reiki, and other applications of Reiki as well. But maybe you have other interests as well that you bring into your Reiki practice. So it's a whole self-guided course, but it includes a mentorship session with me. It is a part of my mentorship program, Go Pro with Reiki. And but you can buy this Financial Foundations course as a standalone course. And if you decide you want more support and mentorship for building your Reiki practice, you can always grow into the GoPro with Reiki course, and get whatever you've paid for the Financial Foundations piece, you can deduct it from the price of the mentorship program when you join later. So definitely check that out. We'll put links for these things in the comments, or just reach out to us and see if you are interested, for sure. But let's do a little round here, one more round through talking about breaking free from being the fixer. And so I would love to leave it back with you, Miss Brownman. What do you think?
Yeah,
What else has
I
come up
just
for
want to
you?
say both your projects sound fantastic. Just that the whole thing of being pregnant, and I was so blessed that I had done Reiki before being pregnant, and that's just the best, right? And
I had not, and it's a little sad place in me. It's okay.
well, there's no such thing as time, right? So, um, but yeah, and also your project, Carrie, sounds great. Sounds like you've got it so organized. Amazing. Well done. I was thinking about how when we want to fix other people, it often comes through fears inside of ourselves. So, sort of like a wounded place. And we often don't think of it because we will cover that up and we'll say, oh, no, it's because I want to do good for the world, right? Oh, I'm trying to do good. It could be fears like mm, that maybe you want to make yourself be more important. Yeah, that sounds awful, doesn't it, to actually admit something like that? And so that's that feeling of not being good enough, possibly. Um, there can be a bunch of different reasons why we feel the need to actually do things to other people to make them into something that is going to make us feel better about ourselves in some way. So, really, that self awareness that we've been talking about is so important. And thinking about yourself and what you're trying to actually get out of trying to fix other people. Yeah. Not a pleasant thing to have to look at, but definitely something that is worthwhile to learn more about ourselves and why we're doing what we're doing. And what really came up for me when I was listening to you guys was this idea of we really need to respect other people. And that's such an important word, too. So, respecting that other people have their own, as you said, Carrie, their own universe, their own world, their own experiences, their own needs. And we don't have total insight into that. And we need to respect that people need to move in their own time, their own space, in their own way. And that's a wonderful thing about the system of Reiki, that we can be there for them and support them with that without actually having to manipulate or create or, do. That's really important. The thing about being a woman, and we did an interview, I think, Michaela, you weren't there, but Carrie and I did an interview with, and I always say her name wrong. You're going to help me out,
Jay.
Carrie. Jay, about
Jay.
yeah, with people pleasing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about people pleasing. So if you think you're a people pleaser and that's why you're trying to fix the world, go and check that podcast out that we did with Jay. That was a part of our Radiance session that we did earlier in the year. Because that's a really important thing too. Why do we need to please people? Well, women, we're brought up to be pleasers generally. So that is a cultural thing as much as something that it's affected who we are. And one other thing that I thought about was the Reiki precepts, the precept Hito ni Shinsetsu ni. So be compassionate to yourself and others. Hito means the self, but at the same time, it means others. And it's that if we are working on ourselves, we are also working on others. These different elements are not different at all because others exist in our world, and it's how we see them is through our eyes. There's this thing that we aren't separate and we are all in it together, and what I'm experiencing when I'm with other people all comes through myself. So remembering that working on ourselves is always going to be the first port of call if we're doing any healing work. Oh my God, these words, they get in the way, don't they? Michaela, you were saying, how do we say, like, I would never say I'm a healer or a Reiki healer or whatever, but they are very common words that people use. But I'll often describe what I do, or if someone asks me about what the system of Reiki is, I'll often describe that as a meditative practice. So it brings it back to me always and my work, and then how that affects the world around me, rather than it being about doing something to someone else. And I find that a really helpful way to verbalize what it is that I do. My last thought on all of these things that we were talking about is, how do you know if you're a fixer? If you're doing this fixing, you might not even recognize it, but step back, some of the things that I've noticed from people who are definite fixers, and one is that when they do a treatment, for example, on someone else, they might find themselves getting really exhausted, right? Because what they're doing is they're actually putting themselves out there into the mix rather than just allowing themselves to be and be there with others. So check in and see what's happening in your treatments or how you are with others. And you'll start to get a bit more of a picture of whether you need to step back. So create boundaries, step back and look at yourself. Carrie talked about the mirror. Look at yourself, see what's going on for you, and start working from that place instead. Okay.
I was really struck by the the image that you shared, Carrie, of the astrological houses of the self and community being on opposite sides of the sky, basically, and the way that that reflects in our lived experience in ways that can be both very unhealthy or toxic, feeling like we have to choose one or the other, and both of those extremes hurts us and others, and that it can also be this incredible place of balance and of beauty. And it occurs to me that a lot of like the solution to this and like where the balanced place is in balancing our relationship with ourself and our relationship with others, and to find that place where we can be in good integrity with both. I love Prentice Hemphill's definition of boundaries as the distance at which I can love both you and me simultaneously. And that to me always is like, it resonates with my understanding of Reiki at this point. We have this, beautiful paradoxical framework that comes through the Buddhist origins of Reiki that says that, the ultimate source of happiness and enlightenment, really ultimately, is generosity and service to others. I deep dive that quite a bit when I work with the Book of Joy with folks, because that is the ultimate thesis of that book, right? That how do you live a consistently happy, joy-filled life in the midst of all of the pain and challenges that life will, in fact, give to you? Generosity and service to others is the key. It's the point at which everything pivots. And paradoxically, the way that you get to a capacity to cleanly and clearly be generous and in service of others without being toxic and fixer about it is by deeply nourishing the self, is by coming inside, getting that bedrock of stability, that sense of being fundamentally okay and resourced, first diamond work, getting our feet under us, knowing that our relationship to the earth is sacred and primary and consistent. Therefore, tending our bodies really well, being kind and compassionate to ourselves, being able to take a compassionate look at the places where we are, not being in good service to ourselves or others, and then being with that, right? So this turning inward, this turning to the spaciousness of our mind, of cleaning and clearing out our distractions and our obsessions and the places where we ruminate and our anxieties, that not only brings great peace and relief to ourselves, it enables us to be a source of peace and relief to others. So being compassionate for ourselves and to others becomes this interconnected experience. And everybody wins, right? When I'm less anxiously, frantically bothering the hell out of the people in my life because I want to fix the things that's wrong with them because I'm fundamentally destabilized and I don't know how to get right, I'm causing suffering for myself and for others, right? But if I can get into that place of stability, of openness, then I can come to the third diamond of ultimate compassion and courage and connection, and balancing the house of the self and the house of community, feels like the central point of being human, right? It's like, how do we truly honor both? How do we be true to our way and our being, which includes being kind to ourselves and being in good integrity and good relationship with others? And these are such fundamental, like, human things. It's like, again, things that are so simple are the pathways to the deepest transformation, but they're not easy. And the most effective process, practice, tool, relationship, teacher that I have found to gain freedom from that part of myself that's deeply ingrained. I come from a well-established line of fix-it women. It runs deep in my lineage. To truly be able to experience a great deal of freedom from that part of myself, as well as other problematic parts, and to really nurture the parts of myself that feel, that really genuinely do want to be generous and be of service to others because that is the right thing to do, not because I need to do that so that I'm okay. Right. And it's taken me a long time to even be able to articulate the difference. Right. Like I think one of you mentioned, that the impulse to be a healer and to serve humanity is, of course, an incredibly beautiful one. And on the surface, it might even look similar. But, that deep self-interrogation of what truly are my motives? Like if I didn't do this at all, how would I feel about myself? Do I feel fundamentally okay outside of serving other people? Is that service, that space holding for others coming from a clean place and genuine desire to help them limit their suffering? Or is there a place where I'm looking for validation through this role? And these are multi-layered inquiries I know for me, I continue to spiral around. The first symbol has been such a great gift in that, this beautiful symbol that has us move from the head down into the hara and then spiral in and then spiral back out. This like process of continuously coming into the center, cleaning, clearing, assessing, being with, moving through, and then circling back out, re-entering the world, different through my own self-care, and then taking what I experienced there back in, and that's an iterative and continuous process that sometimes happens in minutes, seconds. Sometimes it's an entire deep, dark winter season of spiraling in and dealing with it and spiraling back out. So yeah, that got a little bit rambly, but I think the ultimate place where I'm at is just as a love letter to Reiki, as a practice that truly did bring me freedom from something that was genuinely causing suffering in my life persistently for years. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yay. So good. So good. Well, okay, I have a test for you. So if you want to know whether or not you're a fixer, this experience happened to me the other day, where I went over to some friend's house. I was having a play date with my kiddos, and at my friend's house, my friends were being kind and generous, and I was their, guest in their house. They were making me dinner, and I was like so uncomfortable the whole time. I'm like, why can't I help? I'm like wanting to get up. Can I grill for you guys? Can I do this? I mean, this is like the internal struggle, right? And I was like, no, I get to sit here in this chair and I get to have other people take care of me for a moment. And it was uncomfortable, but I kept coming back to it and I kept sitting with that. And then it was so funny. I had a girlfriend over at my house the other day, and we were having a play date with her kiddo, and I was doing the same. I was like, I'm gonna make dinner for the kiddos, and she was just like, I'm not gonna do it. And I just like didn't even know what to do with herself, and I was like, just sit down, relax, breathe, or just sit with the kids, and hang out with them. But it was not easy, right? And so these dynamics, I think we've all spoke to, can be pain point. It can be really challenging. It's a process too, because I think what you said, Michaela, is so true. Is that our heart for service and want to support other people? It is at the core of what it is to be human, and we are all driven by that drive to some degree. But if it doesn't include ourselves, then there is an imbalance. And when we heal this dynamic, what we can come back to is that we can serve from a much stronger foundation. We can be actually of a much greater impact when we take care of our own inner being first. We put oneself first, and then from that stronger place, we can support others. And that's one of like the hypothesis, let's say, in my financial foundations course is and one that I just encourage anyone who's listening sitting with is that when you are in a state of constant struggle financially, constant anxiety financially, you cannot bring your best self to your work. And so when you build that stronger financial foundation and you're more in touch with, I know how I'm going to get my needs met this month and this year, then you can put so much more of your heart and your mind and your consciousness to your work. Um and even same, I mean, we kind of talked about like the silliness of giving Reiki to the things around us. And I think, I get that. And I also just, it's like those things can come back to us because like giving Reiki to your computer or your food is to put your consciousness into something, is to put your awareness and this generosity and like a kind of a spiritual focus on the nutrients of the food, or maybe disconnecting from all of the energy and the frequencies coming in through your computer and your electronics, all of that stuff. So it's all, I think I feel like it comes back to right relationship, right relationship. I don't know about you guys, but so, anyways, but everyone, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts today. I know I feel very, I received a lot from this conversation. And so, everybody who's listening to our podcast, we hope you take some of this in and, go out and give yourself some Reiki and just connect to you. Put your feet on the earth and really start looking inwards, thinking about where you can direct that powerful mindset and awareness of fixing and bring it into yourself and see where it takes you. So thanks again, friends, for joining us for this episode, and we can't wait to join you or have you join us for a future conversation down the road. Have a gorgeous day. Bye.